3 months ago, I never imagined I would find myself in one of the most classified locations beneath the Great Pyramid of Giza. My name is Marcus Chen, 35 years old, a forensic archaeologist specializing in anomalous discoveries. I've spent the better part of a decade investigating sites that challenge conventional historical narratives. My fascination with Egypt began during graduate school, when I discovered discrepancies in carbon dating reports from the Giza complex. Official records showed gaps, missing data, retracted studies, and unexplained inconsistencies in geological surveys. These weren't simple academic oversights. Someone was actively suppressing information, and I needed to know why. The team assembled for this expedition consisted of 5 specialists. Dr. Helena Voss led our group, a bioarchaeologist from Berlin with an impeccable reputation for discretion. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities had specifically requested her involvement, but we later discovered the true architects of this operation operated far beyond governmental oversight. Our linguistic expert was Thomas Hartwell, a brilliant decoder of ancient scripts who had worked on classified projects involving historical intelligence. His expertise would prove crucial in the days ahead. Sarah Kim brought her knowledge of comparative mythology and ritual studies, with particular focus on pre-dynastic Egyptian practices. Finally, there was David Reeves, my longtime research partner, and the only person I trusted completely in this increasingly dangerous situation. The invitation arrived in mid-December through encrypted channels. A representative named Hassan al-Masiri claimed to work for a joint archaeological initiative between international universities and Egyptian authorities. The documentation appeared legitimate: official seals, proper clearances, and detailed project outlines. We had no reason to suspect deception at first. Al-Masri briefed us at a secure location in Cairo, his voice tense with barely contained excitement. Ground-penetrating radar had detected unprecedented anomalies beneath the Great Pyramid. Recent seismic activity had revealed previously unknown chambers, and preliminary excavation had uncovered passages that predated known construction by millennia. The Egyptian government wanted these findings documented before public announcement, or so we believed. The security arrangements should have raised immediate red flags. Armed personnel escorted us through service entrances, normally restricted to maintenance crews. Electronic sweeps confiscated our personal devices, replacing them with monitored equipment. The elevator descended far deeper than any tourist map indicated, reaching sub-level areas that officially didn't exist. My heart pounded as we descended into the unknown depths. The mechanical hum of the elevator seemed to echo my growing unease. Something about this expedition felt wrong, but the scientific opportunity was too significant to abandon. Chief Engineer Khalil Nazir met us at the underground facility, his weathered face betraying years of keeping dangerous secrets. The air hung thick with dust and a metallic scent that seemed to coat our throats. Industrial lighting cast harsh shadows across roughly carved walls. Nazir explained that drilling operations had broken through into a sealed chamber system approximately 2 weeks prior. Initial surveys suggested the space had remained undisturbed for thousands of years. The entrance appeared as a narrow rectangular opening, barely wide enough for single-file passage. Modern equipment surrounded the breach: monitoring devices, atmospheric sensors, and communication arrays that seemed excessive for routine archaeological work. Nazir handed us specialized breathing apparatus and warned that oxygen levels fluctuated unpredictably within the chamber system. "Whatever you find down there," Nazir whispered as we prepared our equipment, "remember that some knowledge comes with a price." Descending through the opening felt like entering another world entirely. The passage walls displayed carved symbols that defied immediate classification. Thomas examined them with growing excitement, his flashlight dancing across the mysterious markings. The pictographs bore no resemblance to conventional Egyptian hieroglyphics. These markings appeared more primitive, yet somehow more sophisticated, abstract patterns that suggested advanced mathematical concepts. "This is impossible," Thomas muttered, his voice echoing in the narrow space. "These symbols predate any known writing system by thousands of years, yet they're more complex than anything we've discovered." Sarah's archaeological training allowed her to estimate the carving techniques. The precision exceeded anything achievable with copper tools used during early dynastic periods. Someone had worked these stones with instruments that shouldn't have existed when the pyramids were supposedly built. The implications sent chills down our spines. Everything we understood about ancient technological capabilities was suddenly in question. After navigating approximately 200 meters through increasingly narrow passages, we encountered a massive stone barrier. Recent excavation had created a rough opening through what appeared to be deliberately sealed entrance. The breach looked hastily made. Modern drill marks scarred the ancient stonework. Al-Masri urged us to document quickly, claiming that political pressures limited our access window. The chamber beyond defied our expectations completely. Instead of typical burial architecture, we discovered a vast hall with vaulted ceilings that disappeared into darkness above our portable lighting. The scale was breathtaking. This single chamber could house a cathedral. The walls displayed intricate relief carvings depicting elongated humanoid figures with distinctly non-human characteristics. Dr. Voss gasped audibly as our lights illuminated the carvings. These beings possessed extended craniums, serpentine features, and appendages that suggested reptilian ancestry. The artistic detail was extraordinary. Every scale, every curve of their alien anatomy rendered with photographic precision. "My God," she whispered, her scientific composure cracking. "What were these things?" Dr. Voss immediately began systematic documentation while Thomas worked frantically to decipher surrounding inscriptions. The pictographs told a story that contradicted established historical records. These carvings suggested an advanced civilization had occupied the Nile region. Thousands of years before accepted timelines indicated human settlement. The artistic style bore no resemblance to classical Egyptian iconography. Sarah noted disturbing details in the ceremonial scenes, her face growing pale in the harsh light. The elongated beings appeared to be conducting rituals involving human subjects. The carved figures displayed clear hierarchical relationships, with the reptilian entities positioned as rulers or overseers. These weren't mythological representations. The artistic precision suggested documentation of actual events. At the chamber's far end stood our most significant discovery, a sarcophagus. Unlike anything in conventional archaeological records, dominated a raised platform instead of limestone construction. Typical of Egyptian burial practices, this container appeared carved from a single block of unknown dark material. The surface showed no signs of weathering despite apparent extreme age. The sarcophagus lid had been partially displaced, revealing glimpses of the contents within. Our initial examination through the gap made our blood run cold. The preserved specimen displayed an elongated skull capacity, far exceeding normal human proportions. Skeletal structure indicated bipedal locomotion, but with significant variations from standard human anatomy. Most disturbing were the facial features. The eye sockets extended at angles suggesting reptilian heritage, while the jaw structure indicated dentition. Unlike any known primate species, desiccated tissue remained remarkably preserved, showing scaled skin patterns rather than typical mummification wrapping. This preservation exceeded anything achievable through known ancient techniques. "This changes everything," David whispered, his camera clicking rapidly as he documented the remains. "Human history, evolution, our place in the universe. None of it makes sense anymore." Thomas discovered inscriptional evidence suggesting this individual held significant status within the depicted civilization. The surrounding hieroglyphs described advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering principles. These beings apparently possessed scientific understanding that wouldn't be rediscovered by human civilization for millennia. Dr. Voss conducted preliminary measurements, while I documented the chamber's architectural features, my hands shaking as I sketched the impossible geometry. The construction methods defied explanation. Massive stone blocks fitted with precision that exceeded modern engineering capabilities. No mortar joints were visible, yet the structure had remained stable for potentially tens of thousands of years. Al-Masri grew increasingly agitated as our documentation continued, constantly checking his watch and glancing toward the entrance. He repeatedly emphasized time constraints and urged rapid completion of our survey. The political pressure he mentioned seemed less about bureaucratic concerns and more about concealing our discoveries from broader scrutiny. His nervousness suggested awareness of implications we were only beginning to understand. "You need to finish now," he hissed, sweat beading on his forehead. Despite the cool underground air, they're coming. And when they arrive, this opportunity ends forever. Security personnel arrived. As we completed our initial survey, their heavy footsteps echoing through the chamber like a funeral march. Instead of protection, they clearly intended containment. Official-looking documents required our signatures, binding us to strict confidentiality agreements under threat of prosecution. The Egyptian government claimed ownership of all materials, forbidding any independent analysis or publication. The sarcophagus and its contents were transported that evening under heavy guard. We witnessed the careful loading process, but weren't permitted to observe the final destination. Official records would later show no trace of this discovery. The chamber was resealed, and construction work began immediately to obscure the entrance. Our team was separated and housed under surveillance in different locations across Cairo. Personal communications were monitored, research materials confiscated, and movement restricted. What had begun as legitimate archaeological investigation had transformed into something resembling a containment operation. Someone with significant authority wanted these findings suppressed completely. The night before our scheduled departure, Thomas disappeared. "I'm meeting Professor Mahmoud at the university," he had whispered to me in the hotel corridor, glancing nervously at the surveillance cameras. "He might help us understand the inscriptions before they ship us out." This was the last time anyone saw Thomas Hartwell alive, or at least free. David and I waited in the hotel lobby until dawn, watching Egyptian security personnel pretend to read newspapers while monitoring our every movement. When Thomas failed to return, we approached the concierge about contacting local authorities. "I'm sorry, sir," the man said, his eyes refusing to meet ours. "There is no record of any American named Thomas Hartwell registered at this hotel." The immigration officer who had been processing our deportation paperwork arrived that morning with a smug smile. "Your colleague decided to extend his stay in Egypt," he announced. "Such a beautiful country. Some visitors never want to leave." Dr. Voss and Sarah departed on the scheduled flight, their eyes haunted with fear and the knowledge that speaking out would only make them disappear. David and I remained, ostensibly to continue searching for Thomas, but really because we would be our only chance of survival. That night, we made our move. The hotel service elevator led to a loading dock, where delivery trucks came and went without much scrutiny. David had spotted a laundry service vehicle that arrived every Tuesday at precisely 11:30 p.m. The driver, a grizzled man named Farid, had seemed more interested in American cigarettes than Egyptian law enforcement. "You want to leave Cairo very quietly?" "Yes," Farid asked, his gold tooth glinting in the loading dock's dim light. "This will cost you everything you have, plus everything you will have." The next 72 hours blurred into a nightmare of cargo containers, border crossings conducted in the middle of the night, and safe houses where desperate people from a dozen different countries waited for their chance at freedom. We learned that Thomas wasn't the first researcher to vanish. A German archaeologist had disappeared the previous year after discovering anomalous artifacts in the Valley of the Kings. A British linguist who had been working on pre-dynastic scripts simply stopped answering emails and telephone calls. "They have facilities," whispered a nervous Egyptian journalist who had been investigating the disappearances. "Places where people who know too much can be kept quiet permanently. Your friend, he knew too much about those symbols." Yes, the smuggling network operated with military precision, moving human cargo through routes that had been used for centuries. Our fellow passengers included political dissidents, religious minorities, and others whose only crime had been asking inconvenient questions. The desperation in their eyes matched our own. The Mediterranean crossing was hell. 37 people crammed into a fishing vessel designed for a crew of 8. The engine failed twice, and we spent 6 hours drifting in international waters, while the captain tried to repair it with spare parts held together by prayer and electrical tape. When the Italian Coast Guard finally spotted us, I had never been more grateful to see a uniform. But even in Europe, the nightmare continued. The storage device David had concealed in his belt buckle contained our only proof of the discovery. When we finally reached a safe location and attempted to access the files, every computer we tried gave us the same message: device not recognized, file format corrupted. "This is impossible," David muttered, staring at his laptop screen in disbelief. I watched these files transfer. I checked them twice before we sealed the device. We tried 12 different computers across 3 countries. The result was always the same. Someone had the technical capability to corrupt digital evidence remotely, or the files had been damaged by some form of interference we didn't understand. Our only proof of the most significant archaeological discovery in human history had been reduced to unreadable data. The official responses were uniformly dismissive. Immigration authorities processed us as routine asylum seekers. When we tried to explain the significance of our situation, a Swiss official looked at us with the weary expression of someone who had heard every possible story. "Gentlemen," he said, setting down his pen, "in the past month, I have processed applications from a man who claimed to have discovered alien artifacts in Antarctica, a woman who insisted she had been held prisoner by time travelers, and a couple who believed their research into ancient mathematics had made them targets of a global conspiracy. I'm sure your archaeological work was very important to you, but unless you can provide documented evidence of persecution." That was when we learned the scope of what we were fighting. Dr. Voss sent a single encrypted message through channels we had established before the expedition. "They're here too. University says I never worked on any Egyptian project. Funding has been frozen. Colleagues won't return calls." Helena, the campaign to erase us wasn't limited to Egypt. It was international, coordinated, and absolutely thorough. 6 months later, we're still running, not dramatically. We're not dodging assassins or engaging in car chases, but we're running nonetheless, moving from city to city, staying in cheap hotels and internet cafes, trying to find someone who will listen to our story and believe that the evidence once existed. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if we imagined it all: the elongated skulls, the serpentine carvings, the impossible preservation. Did we really see what we think we saw? But then I remember the weight of that ancient air in the chamber, the metallic taste of fear in my mouth when I first saw those eye sockets staring up at us from the sarcophagus. Thomas is still missing. The chamber has been sealed. The evidence has been destroyed or hidden away in archives we'll never access. But the truth has a way of surfacing, even when buried beneath layers of official denial and classified clearances. Somewhere, other researchers are making similar discoveries. Other teams are being silenced. Other evidence is being suppressed. The serpentine eyes we stared into that day continue to haunt our dreams, but they also drive us forward. Those beings left us a message, carved in stone, that had waited millennia for discovery. We may not understand their warning yet, but we refuse to let it disappear into the darkness. The question isn't whether the truth will emerge. The question is whether humanity will be ready.